We're going to bring up the Dowdells right now. Of course, I told you when we first started this that my very first after the seconds of shock about Chester was just my heart sank for my friends, Sean and Thora Dowdell, who are very good friends with him, business partners, but more than any of that, they are family. And this right here is Thora Dowdell. Please give her a round of applause. And she's going to talk about Chester a little bit.
Wow. Hi, everybody. This is amazing, the amount of love in this room right now. I want to say a special thanks to Greg Paul. He's been an old friend of this group of people. He has supported Chester and Sean and myself over the years, and he's responsible for a lot of little successes and big successes with Grey Daze and Club Tattoo. And I just want to say on behalf of Club Tattoo, we appreciate all your patronage, and we know that those tattoos will last a lifetime. Even if Chester's music doesn't come through your radio every day, you will be able to wake up every day and feel his love and his contribution to your life. Your presence here today just means so much to us, and this is really difficult, as you can imagine. We miss Chester just as much as you do. He was my friend, and I've known him for 20 years. I pretty much crash-landed into him and Sean's life. Sean and I got married after a very short courtship, and they were playing in the band. And Chester was so gracious, and he took me in and loved me like a sister. He always had good advice, although sometimes it was a bit crazy, but he was a rock star. So I've known him for 20 years, and in those 20 years, I have watched him be a doting husband, a loving father, and just witnessed him becoming one of the most well-known musicians in the world. His talent spoke for itself. He loved his family, and he put the needs of others in front of himself, sometimes with sacrificing his own well-being. Here today are friends and fellow musicians that will be playing original music written by Chester with themselves. This performance is very special. As they perform and we listen, it reminds me and us that this man that is mostly known from Linkin Park also had a beginning and other passions that included my husband Sean, Mace, Ryan, and Amir. Losing Chester has impacted all of us tremendously. But it has also brought this group of friends and all of you people together in a loving way. A blessing that we must see in this time of grief. His music has come in many forms. He truly loved his fans, and he saw the world through your eyes. And although Chester screamed often in his music, he really was a quiet, gentle soul. He was a normal guy. He rode his bike to our house, his daughter's bike that was pink with the little, with the bell, ding-a-ding. And it was like, dude, you just can't show up at my house unannounced, like in my pajamas. So he was unpredictable. And he had a crazy sense of humor. He always had us laughing. Serious business meetings? No, they weren't serious when Chester and I both were in the room. I'm sure Sean will tell you lots of stories where he wanted us to calm down and put duct tape over our mouth. You never knew what was going to end up in your yard at Christmas time. We loved lots of fun, crazy gifts, because when you have a robust life, you have to love one another, and Chester did that through really fun things, how he expressed himself. You know, he made everyone around him feel important, no matter what your role was in his life. And I have many great memories of Chester. I don't want to stay up here too long, but I know that I will cherish them until I see him on the other side. all those memories. He is at peace now. May all of you rest knowing that he is happy and he's carefree now. He's watching over all of us. He's our angel, silently guiding us through this earthly life now. Please rest easy and take care of each other. And if you know anyone who is struggling and feels lonely, please reach out. Don't be strangers to people that you think you should be a stranger to. Reach out and love one another. And thank you all for coming today and traveling from all over the world and listening to me speak about my very dear friend. I'm going to invite my husband Sean up now, and he has some great things to say also. Thank you all.
But it turned out pretty awesome, you guys. It's obvious that my friend really touched everybody in this room pretty deep, and that's pretty incredible to see that. As my lovely wife just said, I'm Sean. I've known Chester for 26 years. He was a dear friend. He was my business partner. He was my bandmate. And just like you guys, you know, my world, my wife, my family, my friends' world, all on July 20th, our world changed, and not for the good. Many of you had never gotten the opportunity to meet or to know him maybe the way that we had. But that's why I thought maybe it might be important for some of us here to kind of share our experiences with each other, to kind of get to know him a little bit deeper than just on a lyrical level or what you saw, that amazing dude up on that screen right there, when every time he performed, he was just this Goliath of a rock star. But if you knew him on a personal level, he wasn't that guy in real life. He was a sweet, kind, gentle soul that was awesome to be around all the time. And of course, his stage presence was just amazing. One of the best rock stars I've ever seen in my lifetime. But I thought it was important maybe that I kind of read some of the stuff that I had the opportunity to say and share with some of his close family at his funeral. And kind of just read a little bit about who he was in my world and share a little bit of that with you. So I hope I can do that. I hope you guys enjoy that. We had been rehearsing also for a couple weeks now. Ryan and Amir from Dead by Sunrise and Mace from Grey Daze. Of course, I was in Grey Daze as well. And then Ryan and I actually were in another band called Bucket of Weenies, which is kind of some of you guys know that project. That was a lot of fun that we did. But so it was really important for us to kind of get together and play and share his music, that we had not only the opportunity to play with him, but to be there when he wrote it and kind of understand it on a really deep level. Unfortunately, we had some really huge technical problems last night and today, so I'm not going to be playing with the band today, and I'm sorry for those of you who are disappointed. Maybe you're not disappointed, but I'm disappointed because I wanted to play for you guys. But these guys actually have put some stuff together that they're going to come out and play, and I'll come out and talk a little bit more as well when they're doing that. But it's going to sound really good. Ryan's got an awesome voice. These guys are going to play a couple of great songs for you. Again, I apologize ahead of time for not being able to play with them. But, you know, there are over 6 billion people on the earth, and actually every one of us here have been blessed so fortuitously and are so inconceivably lucky to have been placed on the earth at a time with such an amazing and wonderful human being as Chester Bennington. I can still very much remember the day that I met him. He was 15 years old. He was a sophomore in high school. I had just gotten into college. I was a freshman. And we had recently formed a band, and we were looking for a new singer to join the group. One of our band members had mentioned he knew a kid that sounded just like Eddie Vedder of Pearl Jam. And at the time, this is 1992, that was cool. Eddie Vedder was like, if you had a singer that sounded like Eddie Vedder, You couldn't do anything better than that, right? So he said he sounded like Eddie Vedder when he sang, and he'd probably be a good singer for the band. The only issue was that he was two years younger than the rest of the guys in the band. So he asked him to come in, and when he came in for his audition, all of us were hoping, basically that he might sound good enough to be in the band. And he walked into the rehearsal space, and he was not at all what I was expecting. He was not that guy. He was that guy, but he wasn't that guy yet. You know what I mean? And I remember thinking to myself, and quite arrogantly actually, and being disappointed with what I saw. And I thought, this guy doesn't look like a typical rock star at all. But then again, looking back, it's so funny that I have to remind myself of this. He was anything but typical. And that was a good thing. I just didn't see it at the time. He was maybe 90 pounds, soaking wet. He had this really tight, curly hair. He was wearing these really nerdy glasses. I thought to myself, oh man. I don't think this kid is what we're looking for at all. And he's laughing right now at me, by the way. He's telling me to fuck off, I know it. But then he began to sing. And my heart dropped into my stomach. My throat dried up. It's drying up even talking about this moment. I remember it very vividly. Every note, every word was beautiful. It was at that very moment that I thought to myself, wow, this kid is unbelievable. And he has it. Whatever it is, this kid has it. And let me tell you, he had a ton of it. So he was by far the most talented of any of us in the group. And we asked him to join the band immediately. And for the next 8 years, Chester and I were basically inseparable. Inseparable in our friendship and in our quest to conquer the music industry together. There was no doubt in either of our minds that we were going to make it. We knew we were going to make it. I felt foolish for years that I had judged him by what I was looking at that day and not what was inside of him. I'm forever thankful for that lesson he taught me on the day that I met him. His mother, Susan, and his father, Lee, were initially concerned about letting their son participate in the music industry, but I gave them my word that I felt like he was my little brother, and I felt the need to make sure I protected him, and honestly did my best to do that. There were a lot of situations where I stepped up in the right moment, let's say. And those are some other stories that I won't share with you today, but maybe another time. He was clearly very talented. He was talented with many things, but he was so much more than a talent. He was honest. He was considerate. He was benevolent. He was unyielding in his convictions and the things that he believed were right. He would consistently stand up for the underdog or the little guy. And I can remember many times when we'd be out to dinner or we'd be somewhere and people were starstruck with him. Oh, Chester, Chester. And sometimes people can get quite rude and selfish in those moments because they want to meet their idol, and I get that. But then there'd be some little kid who'd get pushed out of the way or somebody who had been waiting even longer than the person who kind of just barged in. And he would very politely say, look, I'll speak to you. Just give me a moment. I want to speak to this guy first. And I always thought that was awesome. He taught me to be a kinder person and really look out for other people. I really love that about him. Those were really the true gifts that he gave the world. He had an incredible voice, of course, and he sang breathtaking, awe-inspiring music that we will all remember forever. We will. Those songs will be with us when we're 70 years old. We'll be singing them. But he was also one of the kindest and most generous individuals I've ever met. He would literally give you the shirt off his back. As you can see in the picture right here, I guarantee you he had a shirt on before that photo and he gave it to somebody. He's that guy. He was that kind and giving and caring. He was unassuming, compassionate, and passionate about so many of the things in his life, not just music. He was always the life of the party and full of big ideas. And by life of the party, he lit up a room. No matter what was going on in that room, he would just kind of take it over. His presence was so much bigger than, 150 pounds and 6 foot tall. He owned the room when he walked in. And not because of his music, just because of his personality, his heart. He was thoughtful, he was loving and caring, and would take as much interest in a conversation with a high-level business person as he would with the guy who was washing his car, or even talking to an elderly man fishing at a lake, or speaking with a child building a sandcastle on the beach. He felt a true responsibility in helping others. And like I said before, he really made me want to be a better person. He was genuine, and he added value to those around him. He knew in order to make others feel that value, he had to make sacrifices. And he sacrificed so much of his time and energy in making others better. And that was actually something I had to check myself on. You know, we would be hanging out. I wouldn't have seen him for months. We'd want to go out to dinner. We'd want to go play basketball, which most of the time he'd end up getting hurt and end up having to cancel a tour or something like that anyway. So, but then somebody would want his time while we were there. We'd be in the middle of a basketball game. People would be coming up wanting autographs or wanting to take photos. And I remember feeling myself, God, you know, really, you guys got to do this right now? We're trying to hang out. But that was him. He wanted to give to everybody. And I had to remind myself of that. He's being kind. He wants to be the better person and give something to this person that's here right now. So I had to kind of not be selfish with his time, with my time around him. So those were some of the cool things about him. He really made me be, or want to be, a better person, rather. He made me reevaluate the way that I treat people on a daily basis. He lifted the spirits of those around him every day and made them believe that they could do great things. I rarely saw him without a smile on his face. He taught me a lot about myself and the way to look at the world. Through his music, he gave people hope, and he helped them understand that they were not the only ones in the world who felt a certain emotion or pain, and he helped them cope with their pain and their issues in their lives through his music, through his lyrics. And I believe one of the greatest attributes was that he made others believe in themselves by simply being nice and speaking to them. He made them feel like they mattered. And he made them feel like they mattered in a world where some of them may have felt they did not. And that was a very special thing to witness in person. I saw it many times, and it was always a beautiful thing. See some little kid, 12-year-old, meet their idol, and he talked to them and made them feel like they mattered in the moment. And that kid went away, and there's probably some of those kids, that kid in this crowd here today, I'm sure. It made them feel really good about themselves and that they could do something great. So maybe that is something that all of us can do going forward in our lives, and we can try to be as good as he was, and as good as he was to others, and help them cope with what they're dealing with. So we all know how immensely talented Chester was in the world of music, but he was so much more than one of the greatest rock stars that ever lived. He was indeed a wonderful father that loved his children with every moment and couldn't wait to see them every day. He was a great husband whose only want in life was to please his lovely wife, Talinda. He spoke of his love for her to me often and how happy he was that he married her. He was an adoring son to both his mother and father, and beamed whenever he felt the pride in him and whatever he was doing. Chester was a fantastic business partner. Thora and I were truly blessed to have him as a business partner. He brought... Fame was almost the thing that didn't matter with what he brought to our business partnership. He brought a lot of great creativity, a lot of great ideas, and as Thora had alluded to earlier, when we would take these business meetings, it was always nervous. And at the funeral, I was actually speaking to Mike Shinoda about this. He says, you know, we used to take these business meetings, I never knew what Chester was going to do. And I started laughing. I said, we had the same experience. He was this wild guy, and I used to be so pent up and so scared of what he was going to say next. Thora finally calmed me down and was like, just let him be himself. So the next few business meetings we take, he would be we call him the monkey in the room. He'd be jumping on tables. He's extremely animated, for those of you who've seen him outside of the music world. And we just let him kind of do his thing, and we would just use that to our advantage. We say that this is our business partner. He's a crazy maniac. He loves to jump around the room and do crazy things. And but we loved it. That was actually very special to me. So he was a great business partner. He was a great band member. I put out 3 records with Chester. I toured with him. Loved him as a songwriter. He and I wrote a lot of songs together. And I know you guys are all huge Linkin Park fans, but I got to tell you, there's a huge spot in my heart for the Dead by Sunrise album and the Grey Daze records too. Thank you for that. he was great on so many, and STP too. I didn't get to know the STP album that he did as much as I knew the Dead by Sunrise material or the Grey Daze and Linkin Park material, but he was good at just about everything he ever did. So I'm proud to say that he was my friend. Not a day is going to go by that I don't think about him. And Chester, I hope you found eternal peace. I look forward to the day where I can hug you on the other side. You will be dearly missed. But I want everyone here to know how much he loved you guys, and I know that he knows how much you guys actually really loved him as well. So I just want to say thank you guys so much for coming to this event today. I hope it's been a good experience. We got a lot more to do. I just wanted to say thank you while I was up here. I'm going to go ahead and introduce a very close dear friend of mine, Ryan Shuck. He's going to come up and talk. He's got an interesting take, which I love listening to him talk. So Ryan, come on out here and give me a hug.
Thank you. Hi guys. It's pretty amazing that a lot of people in this crowd flew from outside of the country. That's an incredible thing, and I know why, because Chester was an incredible guy. This is definitely for. I have to even talk to it like a lead singer. You know, instead of preparing something special for this event, I'm saying something to you guys just off the top of my head about Chester, which I've done so many times in so many videos and on Facebook and all this kind of stuff. I really kind of lamented over what on earth do I say. This is just, for me, this is for all of us, I know. But this has been a really, really rough, emotional thing for us to go through. I was just kind of going through everything, and I thought that I would just kind of, I guess, time travel a little bit to a few days after we got the news, and we realized that we needed to actually write a eulogy, for his funeral. So, I just thought, fuck it, I'll just share it with you guys. This is the actual eulogy that I wrote for the funeral. When I started writing it, I ended up finding myself sort of writing a letter to him and going in and out of talking to his family and his wife, Linda, and the guys in Linkin Park, who, by the way, have been absolutely fantastic, wonderful guys. So, as I go through this, maybe I'll improvise if I don't start crying. But this was written a few days after we found out, and took about a week or two to kind of bang through this and get this to a point where it was presentable. But it's not as dark as I'm sounding right now. So I spent the last week writing, trying to organize my thoughts and feelings about Chester, trying to understand this, what I pretty much classify as a nightmare. Make some sort of sense out of it, sitting on planes, going back and forth on tour, trying to keep myself composed and figure out how to even handle this situation. And I found it was very, very easy to get very, very dark. Have you guys gone there yet?
Yes.
Very, very dark, right? Because when you try to figure out why, and try to think about what you could have done as his friend, the path doesn't go anywhere. So I find it really hard to not go down that path, and I was finding a very hard time not going down that path shortly after it happened. But after Amir and I flew home from tour, we sat with Linda and the family, and we just all were hanging out at his house, and we were talking with Chester's mother, and it was really, really rough. That was a tough situation. No one had their head on straight. I mean, we were really, really struggling together. Sean had a great idea, and he goes, you know, let's get out of here with Susan. Susan's Chester's mother, and Caitlin, my girlfriend, and Sean and I all took Susan to dinner. Fuck, I'm glad we did that. Because I was going downhill. So we went to dinner and we started talking, and Susan was super grateful. She was like, thank you so much. I didn't know that I needed to get out, but I did. And I'm so grateful that we're having dinner together, and grateful. That's a concept. Grateful. I started feeling happy as Susan started telling me stories, telling us stories about Chester when he was a 2-year-old. Oh my God. Just like you guys can imagine, right? Like you guys already know what was going on. She was telling me that he learned the entire Popeye movie at like 2 or 3 years old. I can't remember the exact age. And he would sing and act out all the parts for everyone that came over to the house. The whole thing, and he would make them listen to the whole thing. He would make them sit. This is like little Chester, probably weighed like 4 pounds. Probably as big as a Chihuahua. You know, he was a little guy for a long time before he became, you know. Yes, we were in competition for a long time to be in shape, and he won. So we were all laughing at dinner, and we discovered something, that whenever we started talking about Chester, we couldn't help but start laughing and having a good time. And, you know, you could probably tell that I was pretty emotional when I came up, but as you start talking about him, you just can't help but start smiling. And that's what happened. And that gave me a direction to start writing something for his actual eulogy. It kind of saved me, saved the day. So I'm really, really grateful. Rob Borden was also at the Bennington's house the same day that I was there, or one of the days that I was there. And he privately came up and told me some of the nicest things that I've ever heard a man say. Totally comforted me. It was some private stuff, but I mean, it was deep, and it was so caring. And it made me really, really grateful that Chester was surrounded by such good guys as the Linkin Park guys. Mike, Rob, Brad, Joe, Dave, incredible human beings, and I'm grateful that when he wasn't with us, he was around those rad dudes. I mean, to say something like Rob said to me took a heart of gold. Just pulled me right out. Super cool. Those guys' props. Despite this almost unbearable tragedy, you know, again, I can't, every time I think of Chester, my heart's filled with love, and I keep going to happiness and being grateful. He made me so happy. He made all of us so happy. He did so many amazing things. Chester was my sweetest friend. He knew me in ways that no one else did. He uniquely knew my most embarrassing insecurities, my weaknesses, the darkness that we share within. And we talked about this many, many times. And he still loved me, and he called me his brother. You know, when someone knows your most, I mean, the worst things about you, we all have them, right? Is there a person in your life that loves you anyways? Got a couple of them maybe one, maybe your parents, I don't know. Chester was like that. So how the fuck did I get so lucky? Wow, Chester Bennington, great guy, loves me unconditionally. Wow. I loved him so much, and I'm extremely grateful that we told each other that we loved each other every single day that we saw each other, and we hugged each other. Just absolutely, for 20 years. Super grateful for that. When we met 17 years ago, we were recording our records, Orgy's second record, Linkin Park's first record, Hybrid Theory, at NRG Studios. And we were in Studio A, and Chester was in Studio B with the Linkin Park guys. And inside of these soundproof, multi-million-dollar studios, I heard someone singing from a couple rooms over so loud, I mean, screaming at the top of his lungs, in key. I was just like, you know, okay. So, you know, it made my hair stand up on my arms. And I'm the social butterfly of Orgy, and Chester was certainly the social butterfly of Linkin Park. So I walked out of the studio to find out who was roaming the halls, blowing their lungs out. And lo and behold, it was this the same guy that Sean knew that weighed about 90 pounds soaking wet. And you know, this little guy, and he happened to be an Orgy fan. And when I heard his voice, I was a Chester fan. And I hadn't heard Linkin Park yet, but we just struck up a conversation. And literally in 5 minutes, we had each other's phone numbers and we're calling each other every day. I've never had an experience like that in my life. We were friends in 5 minutes. And we were never broken. There was never in 17 years a time that we weren't extraordinarily close friends. And again, incredibly grateful for this. I immediately found the combination of contradictory forces that drove Chester also made him an incredibly attractive human being. He had incredible drive, talent at a level that I'd never encountered before, unstoppable strength of will. Yet he was so incredibly fragile. And I thought this was so beautiful. I also know that this made life extremely difficult for Chester. We spoke about it many times. And at the same time, he was so kind. I couldn't believe it. With that war going on, that beautiful, beautiful person, he was still so kind to everybody. I thought he was so special. Before I heard one song. And he was so fucking funny. God, he was so fun to be around. He turned the concept of poop into a comedic tool of bludgeoning. He came over to my house and sang Breaking the Habit, but substituting poo and pee into the main parts. It was the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life, but I laughed so hard. I couldn't believe it. Only, talking about gifts, Sean said something earlier. Only Chester Bennington would buy me the penis pokey. For my birthday. Can you imagine how this book works? I'll kind of show you so that I don't go to jail. Thank you, Chester. So you're the star, and you put it right here. And it's a hot dog. He fucking came unglued when I did the book for him. A banana. I mean, you can... fucking unglued. A snake in a river? Who the fuck does this? Fireman. The most wrong dude I've ever met. The worm on a fish hook. Thanks, dude. This dude would come unglued and he would make me do penis pokey to total strangers at my house. Not once, not twice, uncountable amounts of times. He would come over and go, do penis pokey. And he'd go like this. And when he does this, you can't say no, right? It's like Chester's making me do the thing with my wiener. I never saw his wiener in it though. So here's the butt of that joke. I am so proud of Chester. I'm in awe of what he did in Linkin Park. I'm in awe of what they've accomplished. I'm in awe of all of you guys and the community that they've created and cultivated and how awesome you guys have been. These signs, all over the world, these signs. We've had, I think, 10,000 messages with you guys holding these signs up just everywhere. It's incredible. It's awe-inspiring. I'm so grateful to have been able to write a record with Chester. That was one of the best times in our lives. Touring the world with Linkin Park. It's funny, Linkin Park opened for us in the beginning in Orgy, and shortly after we opened for them. Yes, selling 3 million records couldn't stand up to 20 million. And I always made that joke to Chester because he was such a goofy, funny guy. I go, dude, I'm going to be opening for you soon. So be cool to us. And we would laugh, and then literally 8 months later, we opened for them. So it's pretty funny. So again, how did I get so lucky? I have no idea. I feel like the luckiest guy on earth. And when I talk about this stuff, I'm just grateful. I'm astonished by what an amazing family Chester was able to create with Talinda and with everyone. I mean, all the people in his life. He had many children and children with different people, and I can't say enough incredible things about all of them, and Talinda for just taking everyone in and just creating such an amazing home environment and bringing that family together. And that's something that I'm going to be forever grateful for. She made him really, really happy, and that made us really, really happy. Some things I wrote to his kids I'm kind of leaving out that I said at the service, but I'm kind of grazing through a little bit because it just gets so personal. But I will always be their crazy Uncle Ryan. That's a nickname that church gave to me, and then Draven calls me Crazy Uncle Ryan, and Tyler calls me Crazy Uncle Ryan, and Lila came up to me the last time I was there, and I said, "Hey, it's Uncle Ryan," and she looked at me like what would you think? And she looks at me and she's like this big. She goes, "Can I kick you?" No, you cannot kick me. She goes, "Well, you're crazy Uncle Ryan. I can kick you." A little kick. And I'm like, cute, most awesome kids in the world. I mean, it really shows what a great father he was. I mean, this guy doted over his family, every single one of them. He did some stuff that, I mean, honestly, it could be too personal, but I'm telling you, this guy, in real life, was the most generous and wonderful guy, and he was so loving to everyone in his family. And I mean everyone. I'm not, no delineation between anyone. He was absolutely wonderful. He inspired me just by showing me how amazing a father could be when they actually try to combat their own demons and learn from the things that happened to them when they were young. We all know Chester went through some shit. He was still wonderful to his own kids. He didn't unleash any of that on that. He was wonderful. And that honestly was very inspiring to me. Talinda, you're an amazing woman, and I'm so grateful that you love my brother so unconditionally. You have been so strong for him, and seeing him with you has constantly made me have to reevaluate how I express my own love and my own relationships. I honestly don't know that I could ever be as good of a person as Chester. He was that good. He loved all of you so much. He told me. We talked about this. He appreciated you guys so much. Seriously, all of you. A mentally and emotionally healthy Chester would have never meant to hurt any of us. I can promise you that. Never. He was not himself when this happened. He was not in control. We often spoke at length about the power of our darkness, if in an effort to repel it and understand it, not invite it in and let it have its way with us. There's no easy way to say this, but this was not an act of selfishness. He didn't mean to hurt us. It was an act of illness. Upon rereading some of my last texts with Chester, Linda and I sat there and read them all together. I realized that while he was lovingly encouraging me with my own battle with addiction, and the dark passenger, as we called it, he was also clearly describing his own hour-by-hour battle with the demons that were still so closely hounding him. Despite all the rainbow and grateful emojis we were sending to one another, I seemed to have missed the subtext. He told me that he had 6 months sobriety under his belt, and I foolishly thought, well, he's got this thing beat. Fucking awesome. The truth of the matter was that the dark passenger already had its hands on the wheel. And Chester was actually in a life or death battle to stay in control. Chester, I deeply understand the pain that you are in. I don't blame you. And I'm not angry with you. I'm so sorry I couldn't do more. Chester would be horrified if we let this destroy any of us. He would be horrified. So we're not going to do it. We're going to keep going on. We're going to choose to live. Even though I can't imagine a life without him. There's going to be one. And we're going to keep going. I'm going to talk about Chester every day. I'm going to hug every one of my loved ones every day. Anyone who's around me, get a fucking hug. Fuck you if you're weird with germs and stuff.
I want to hug you.
Yeah, you're going to get it, don't worry. I'm going to tell them that I love them. And that I'm always here for them every day. I'm going to write music every day because I know that that's what Chester did and that's what we loved. He always encouraged me to. I'm going to perform live as much as I possibly can. I'll be channeling Chester through every word I sing and every note I play. I think about him when I will remember his strength, his talent, and his love, and I will use it to keep going. Chester, you have reawakened my desire to live, to make music, to love our families and friends as hard as we possibly can. Thank you so much, my dear friend. I'm speaking for Amir, for Julie and Kay, Dead by Sunrise, and our whole extended family. Chester, we love you so much. You've been a massive force of positivity in our lives, and you will never be forgotten. I want to thank all of you guys. Thank you so much.